10 corrupt police officers caught and got jail for a lifetime. In recent years, cases of police corruption have been increasingly prevalent in the media. Many corrupt police officers from various cities across the United States were caught and sentenced to life in prison. Their crimes ranged from embezzlement and drug trafficking to violent assault and murder. These officers used their positions of power to engage in illegal activities and actively participated in the very crimes they were meant to prevent. However, with the help of diligent investigations and the justice system, they were all held accountable for their actions and received the appropriate punishment. This serves as a reminder that no one, regardless of their job or status, is above the law, and justice will be served for those who break it. We invite you to join us as we delve into the shocking stories of the 10 most corrupt police officers who were caught and sentenced to prison. Eric Del Falconer. A former police officer named Eric Del Falconer was arrested for the death of an innocent man named Cameron Lamb. The police were investigating a car crash and were told that a red truck was chasing a purple Mustang. They followed the red truck and found it belonged to Lamb. Eric and his partner Troy Schwamm arrived at the scene and they saw Lamb backing his truck into his garage. Eric and Troy were detectives in the Violent Offender Squad, which is responsible for preventing violent crimes. They entered Lamb's property without identifying themselves or asking for permission. They also didn't have a legal warrant and were dressed in plain clothes with police department vests. Detective Falconer, a white officer, arrived at Cameron Lamb's home and pointed his gun at Roberta Merritt, who lived with Lamb. He told Lamb to turn off his vehicle and exit it, then fired 4 shots after shouting that he had a gun. The shooting happened only 9 seconds after the officer's arrival. In November 2021, Falconer was found guilty in a bench trial presided over by Judge James Dale Young of the Jackson County Circuit Court. He received a 3-year sentence for killing Cameron and an extra 6 years for his armed criminal actions. Judge Young concluded that Falconer had violated Lamb's constitutional rights by entering his property without probable cause and warrant or consent. Since there was no evidence of any wrongdoing on Lamb's part, Falconer's actions were unconstitutional and a violation of Lamb's rights. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins and fellow members of the notorious elite unit, the Gun Trace Task Force, have been described as possibly the most corrupt police officers in the history of the Baltimore Police Department. Jenkins, who was the leader of his task unit, was found culpable for egregious amounts of abuse in the city, which was already beleaguered with problems. The unit was entrusted with the responsibility of taking illegal weapons off the streets. However, instead of fulfilling their mandate, they indulged in reselling stolen weapons, robbing dealers, and planting fake evidence. In 2018, Jenkins pleaded guilty to robbery, racketeering, and civil rights violations for planting illegal substances on 2 people in 2010. He was sentenced to 25 years in a federal prison by Judge Catherine C. Blake, who gave a sentence between the 20-year-old sentence Jenkins wanted and the 30-year sentence the prosecution requested. Judge Blake believed Jenkins acted like a drug dealer with a police badge and did not give him a more lenient sentence. During his sentencing, Jenkins was observed crying in court and acknowledging his role in poisoning the community instead of safeguarding it. He extended his apologies to the citizens of Baltimore, admitting, "I'm so sorry, Your Honor. I know it's my fault. I know I have to be punished." Jenkins and his task force engaged in a range of criminal activities spanning over 7 years, including overtime, fraud, and planting illegal substances. Joseph Medzinowski. Joseph Medzinowski, the former Chicago police officer who was dubbed the most corrupt police officer by a U.S. attorney 20 years ago, is still in prison at the age of 69. Throughout his career, Medzinowski played a despicable part in a drug sales ring with multiple gang members and other corrupt police officers. He was convicted in 2001 of selling illegal substances, extorting money from street hands, and even divulging the identities of undercover cops to gang members. During his 22-year career as a police officer, he received 59 citations for valor and arrests, earning him a reputation as a hero for his numerous busts of illegal substances and weapons. However, he was secretly involved in betraying his department and city by revealing the identities of undercover police officers to gang members, protecting illegal organizations. He also distributed controlled substances and provided gang members with ammunition, contributing significantly to criminal activities. Joseph Medzinowski was not only convicted but also sentenced to life in prison without out the possibility of parole for his involvement in racketeering and conspiracy. His conviction ultimately led to the disbandment of the department's gang crimes unit. Found guilty of all 10 counts against him, the verdict was read in a courtroom filled to capacity. Daniel Holtzclaw. Daniel Holtzclaw, a former police officer from the Oklahoma City Police Department, was accused of sexually assaulting multiple African-American women over a 6-month period from December 2013 to June 2014. He targeted poor, mostly black areas of the city and chose women with outstanding warrants or criminal records. Investigations found that Holtzclaw committed several sexual crimes. In June 2014, he sexually assaulted Jeanne Liggins, a woman passing through the area, despite her not having a criminal record or being poor. Holtzclaw was arrested for this crime. Daniel Holtzclaw was taken into custody by the Sex Crimes Unit of the Oklahoma City Department the day after Jeannie Liggins filed a police report against him. He was arrested on August 21, 2014, after a deep investigation, and 13 women came forward as witnesses to the crimes he'd committed. Holtzclaw had been on paid administrative leave from the department since August, when he was charged, and he was fired in January 2015. Daniel Holtzclaw's trial began on November 2, 2015. He faced 36 charges but pleaded not guilty to all of them. In December 2015, the jury found him guilty on 18 charges and recommended a prison sentence of 263 years. Holtzclaw's attorney requested a new trial, but the judge denied the request. Holtzclaw appealed the decision, but the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals denied it in August 2019, and the Supreme Court of the United States denied his petition in March 2020. Michael Dotro. In 2013, former Edison police officer Michael Dotro started a fire at the home of Edison Police Captain Mark Anderco in Monroe Township using gasoline-filled jugs. He admitted to attempting to kill Anderco and causing significant damage to his house. Dotro was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with 20 for attempted murder and 10 years for aggravated arson. Thankfully, nobody was harmed in the incident. During Dotro's trial, he was given multiple sentences, including 10 years for official misconduct, 5 years for conspiracy to tamper with a witness, and 18 months for conspiracy to retaliate. These sentences would run concurrently. Reports indicate that Dotro started the fire at Captain Anderco's house after he was ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation following his 11th excessive force complaint. Just 4 days before the incident, Dotro underwent an evaluation. When he entered the courtroom, his wife shouted at him and called him a manipulative monster. Dotro resigned from the Edison police force during his trial. After the 2013 arson attempt, authorities conducted further investigations and filed 17 additional charges against him. At his sentencing, Dotro did not express any remorse for his actions and was sentenced to 17 years in prison before becoming eligible for parole. Dalek Stafford. In 2015, Dalek Stafford, a former deputy Marksville marshal, and Norris Greenhouse, both officers, attempted to stop a vehicle being driven by Christopher Few with Few's son Jeremy Mardis as a passenger in the front seat. Few failed to pull over, leading to a 2-mile car chase that ended in a dead-end street. The officers fired 18 rounds of ammunition into Few's vehicle, resulting in Few being injured and Jeremy losing his life. The Louisiana State Police, led by Colonel Mike Edmondson, investigating the shooting incident involving officers Stafford and Greenhouse. The body camera footage played a crucial role in arresting the officers involved. Judge William Bennett of Louisiana 12th Judicial District Court imposed a gag order prohibiting parties from discussing the case with the media. Both officers were under house arrest during the trial. Stafford was found guilty and sentenced to 40 years in prison, while Greenhouse pleaded guilty to negligent homicide and malfeasance in office and was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but was released after serving 21 months. The difference in their sentences was due to the severity of their actions, according to the Attorney General Prosecutor. Brian Devaney, Sean Dolan, and Devin Smith. In August 2021, 3 former Sharon Hill police officers named Brian, Sean, and Devin were charged with causing the death of 8-year-old Fanta. Fanta was walking home from a football game at Academy Park High School with her mother when 3 officers who were present at the site fired their weapons. The officers claimed that they heard a nearby fire and responded, but the fire was not related to the football game. The 3 officers recklessly targeted a passing black Chevy Impala, assuming it it was the source of the shots they heard without proper verification. Unfortunately, the vehicle was simply passing by the exiting crowd, of which Fanta and her mother were part. Due to their eagerness to fire their weapons, Fanta lost her life. Initially, Angelo Ford and Hussein Strand, who fired the initial shots, were charged with first-degree murder for Fanta's death, but they later took a plea deal and this charge was dropped. In contrast, 3 officers faced 12 criminal charges, including reckless endangerment and causing death. Roy Oliver was a police officer in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in Texas. On May 5, 2017, Oliver and other police officers responded to a 911 call reporting underage drinking at a party with almost 100 people. When they arrived, they heard a gun being fired, causing panic. Oliver fired 3 shots into a car, killing 15-year-old Jordan Edwards, who was unarmed and sitting in the front passenger seat. Edwards was with his 2 brothers and friends at the time. His 16-year-old brother, who was driving, was held overnight for questioning as a witness. Initially, the police claimed that the car was aggressively backing down the street toward the officers. However, after reviewing the body camera footage, the police chief acknowledged that the car was driving away from the officers. Oliver was fired from the police force and charged with the murder of Jordan Edwards. He turned himself in on the same day and was later released on a $300,000 bond. His trial was postponed twice and finally began in August 2018. He was convicted of killing Edwards and given a 15-year prison sentence. His lawyers filed an appeal against the sentence and the guilty verdict, but it was rejected by Texas 5th Court of Appeals in August 2020. As a result, both the conviction and the sentence were upheld. Oliver will not be eligible for parole until 2026. Charles Becker. The 42-year-old lieutenant had become embroiled in New York's criminal underworld, reportedly leveraging his position to extort large sums of money in excess of $100,000 from Manhattan brothels and illegal gambling establishments. In exchange, he allegedly promised the businesses immunity from police interference and delivered a percentage of the profits to politicians and other police officers. Herman Rosenthal, an Estonian immigrant, ran illegal casinos in the Tenderloin district of New York. When police raided one of his casinos, Rosenthal was upset by the resulting property damage. He went to the press and revealed that one of the officers, Becker, used to collect 20% of the take from the casinos. Becker, along with 2 other officers, was charged with extortion. On the day Becker was supposed to testify before a grand jury, Rosenthal was murdered. Lefty, Louise, Whitey Lewis, Frank, and Gyp the Blood were identified as his attackers and were separately tried and convicted, receiving the death penalty and eventually being executed. Manhattan District Attorney Charles S. Whitman accused 4 men of murdering Rosenthal on behalf of Becker, who was to interview Rosenthal before his death. Becker was arrested on July 29, 1912, and tried before John Goff. However, the guilty verdict was overturned due to Goff's bias, and there was a retrial where Becker was again found guilty and sentenced to death, becoming the first police officer in New York's history to receive this penalty. William Vasquez Baez. William Vasquez Baez, a former officer of the Puerto Rico Police Department, had pleaded guilty to participating in racketeering, conspiracy, and conspiracy to commit murder in connection with his involvement with an illegal drug trafficking organization. The organization shipped drugs to New York from a daycare center in the Bronx. While working for the organization, William committed various crimes, including the distribution of thousands of kilograms of controlled substances. The U.S. Attorney has accused William of abusing his position as a police officer to assist a dangerous organization in distributing drugs and harming citizens he had sworn to protect. William aided a gang from 2004 to 2016 by using violence to protect their territory and trade, for which he was paid a salary. He was also accused of participating in a murder and a kidnapping, as well as delivering a confidential informant to the gang under the pretense of being police officers, resulting in the informant's death. In 2022, William was sentenced to 30 years in prison by federal judge Jesse Furman. Thank you for watching our video on 10 corrupt police officers who were caught and sentenced to life in jail. We hope this video has shed light on the importance of maintaining integrity and honesty in law enforcement. Please consider subscribing to our channel for more informative content on similar topics.